Jason and I would be talking about vision. Jason's going to take the lead here, and I'm going to toss it to him to get us started.
Yeah, just, it's that time of year, beginning of the year. It's also something that we would love coming back to because, vision leaks. So you think you can articulate. Kirk and I were even talking this morning, like when somebody asks you in your neighborhood, like, what do you do? Like, how do you respond? My wife even asked the other day, like, hey, when people ask me like what you do, what should I say? And so here, I thought she knew, but yeah, so that'd be a question for the channel. When people ask you what you do, what is your go-to response? Because some might, it probably depends on context, right? If you want intrigue and you want to keep the conversation going, you might answer one thing. If you want the conversation to end, you've probably found ways to say, well, I do this, and then the conversation's done and you guys can move on. There's probably context for that to be necessary in both ways, but today we're talking about vision and real quick, what is it and how do we get there? There's often, I just want to clarify some terms, mission and vision. We help clients with mission and vision and values. If you go to Barnes and Noble and you read leadership books, I'm a nerd for it. Mission and vision are synonyms, yet with different definitions, and it's different depending on the book you picked up. I mean, it's synonyms because one book will say mission is this and vision is that. Then you'll pick up another leadership book and it'll say, actually, mission is that, which the other guy called vision, and vision is that, which the other guy called mission. And then just repeat that for every different book you picked up. They kind of switch back and forth. So I'm going to give you kind of my view on it. Again, it's not dogmatic, because if we were serving a client that said, no, it has to be this way, I'd be like, okay, cool. Words are symbols that point towards meaning, and I'm more interested in the meaning. So for me, mission is the why. Why do we exist? ArtSpeak, our mission statement is we exist to reach people. We exist to help the church reach people. So there's our why. Vision then for an organization is what? What do we do to help somebody accomplish their mission, right? So if you're a part of an organization, your mission is the big why. And when I'm talking to a church, and our consulting team's talking to a church, or our messaging team talking to a church, like the mission, if you're a church, like, we don't have to brainstorm this. Like, Jesus gave us a pretty good one. And if you're an organization that wants to be under his umbrella, like he was like, here is the mission. In fact, I'll be with you. Let's just call it a co-mission. How about that? I commission you. I'll be with you on this mission. Go and do this, and this. So that fulfilling the Great Commission is kind of a good place to start. Is that fair? All right. So that should be articulated. It can be. We can get creative. They could hire us to be creative and help them. But mission is that big why. Vision is, what do I see? I like vision in the tangible, the things I can see, the steps that I can take. Because mission can sometimes be blurry. Like, reach people. Like, okay, that sounds nebulous, and I don't know how to do that. Okay, well, let me tell you, we're going to partner with churches, nonprofits, and businesses via strategic consultation, branding, online presence, and ongoing creative and marketing support. So now we're talking about a vision that's very clear on how we're going to fulfill our mission. So the why, the what, and the how. Mission is why, vision is what, and your core values, that'd be for another whole call, would be, how does it feel while you're doing your mission? When you're fulfilling your mission, living out your vision, how does it feel while you do that? That's the importance of core values. So why, what, and how. How did we get here though, Kirk? Because I started this journey when I felt called by God to help people. I went to Bible college and went on into seminary. I loved it. I was a nerd for it. I thought, man, I'll just keep studying this stuff forever. And then a professor of mine said, Jason, I think if you went and got a job in the local church, you would never come back to seminary. I think you'd be really good at it. I actually ended up getting a job at that professor's local church. And then I I didn't pay him anything, but I got an intern in my first summer working there, Will Kitchen. And the rest was history, because he helped us hit the next level in gear. But I studied biblical languages. I studied translating the Bible. My master's thesis is temple imagery in the book of Revelation. Like I'm as almost as nerdy as you can get and be a Pentecostal. But I loved it. But for me, what we're doing today in helping churches with their messaging and helping churches reach people, to me, it's the same. It's the same conversation. We're taking an ancient message, a timeless message, and we're translating it into the common vernacular, the current, the contemporary, which is what I loved about, if I nerd out a little bit, about translating the Bible, is we're translating, the New Testament was written in Koine Greek. If you were going to write something in the first century that you wanted people to respect and read and be influential, you would not have written in Koine Greek. You would have written it in classical Greek, like every other scholar. But if you wanted something that people, normal people, the average person could apply to their life, then you wrote in Koine Greek. So I love that even the New Testament was written in the language of the common. It was the most contemporary language. It was the language of truck drivers, the language of fishermen, of football players. This was the language that people understood, right? And so for me, if you think about our communication triangle, who are we? Who are they? What's that unique win-win message? To me, that's what we're doing. We're translating the timeless truth into that. But Kirk, you came at it from a different background. How did you get here?
Yeah, perhaps slightly different. I mean, I also was at Bible college and seminary, and I was focused on intercultural communication. My plan A was to be a missionary. I was prepping to go to France to be a missionary in France, but two Muslim immigrants that were immigrating from Northern Africa into France in large numbers. And so I was preparing for that. I was studying, in addition to the normal Bible college and seminary things, Bible and those things, I was studying French and Arabic and the Quran and Arabic and Muslim culture and history and how the church intersected with that and what they thought about church and what it took in order to connect with Muslims with the gospel message in a way that built a bridge and made connections, changed lives. And through that process, spent some time in different countries and in some of those contexts, and came back here. And then as it happened, I wound up at the young adult ministry that Jason was doing called 2020. Back when 2020 was still cool. The year 2020, I don't know. The year 2020.
2020 vision. Our address of the address of our property was at 2020 East Battlefield. So that's where the name came up, 2020.
But it helped start. Jason came up here to St. Louis area to launch a church. I came up here to help with that and realized that honestly, the same principles apply. That everything that it took to connect with, build relationships to, and communicate effectively with a Muslim about Jesus, you had to do all of the same things to your neighbor in St. Louis. That is to say, every person you talk to has their own background, their own experiences, their own filters, their own paradigms, their own experiences with church and God and Jesus and the ideas of church and God and Jesus. And if you don't account for those things, you will not be able to communicate effectively with them. And in fact, it's all the more sneaky in a culture that you think you understand. This is my culture. So you make all kinds of assumptions about what are shared ideas and shared vocabularies and shared experiences that may not be true. And so as we began to reach out to people here to start this church, realizing that we had to do a lot of the same work, the same paradigms applied. And as we began to work with other churches and other organizations, it was just the same story. And so we've leaned into this picture of the communication triangle. We talk about it a lot. If you haven't seen it, here it is. We found out recently, sometimes when you're in an organization, you're going along and you have a tool that you use all the time, you kind of assume everybody's seen it, everybody understands it. What we've discovered recently is that's not necessarily true, especially with the rate of growth that we're at, that you may not have heard us talk about this. And so we wanted to make sure that we're at least continuously pointing at it. And so this is it. I mean, this is the idea is we've got a communicator on one end, identity, that's, who are you? You've got the audience on the other end, who are they? There's things that they want, things that they know that they want, they hope for, things that they fear, perhaps their worries. And we got some things that we want. And in the overlap, that's how we create the message that connects. And so we apply this all over the place at ArtSpeak. It is the kind of foundational paradigm, foundational framework that we use, whether we're talking about our consulting, our messaging, our branding, even our marketing, everything we do. You can apply it to a graphic that you're creating or an email that you're writing or an overarching strategy. This applies, and this is the framework we use.
I'd take that even a step further beyond even what we do. I found that this thing just works. It applies. This is communication, whether you're talking about with your spouse or parenting your children. This is communication, thinking through, and if you boil it down to one word, it's empathy. Are we willing to do the difficult work of self-identity and empathy so that we can lead them somewhere good, communicate in a way that they would understand the words, understand not just the symbols that we're using to point them somewhere, but understand the meaning behind that, and then move in the direction that we would hope and create a win-win, a shared win together. And it works in leadership context. It works in the consulting group, or it works in one-on-one, works in corporate culture. People, when you start talking about empathy and how to use it as a leadership tool, as a communication tool, it works. So we got started as church planters, trained in seminary to be missionary church planters. And then we were both also working for a marketing company. And that's when Kirk and I were like, you know what, this isn't like rocket science. So we can, we learned a lot from them, but we're like, we could do this. We could help the church use these principles. And so we had started, our church had 370 plus people on the first day in a movie theater, and kind of the intersection of our culture. We had some outreaches on our first few Easters that were 4,000 or 5,000 people. And I had like 40 volunteers. And so then people around the country started asking how I did that. And that was all at the same time. And so Kirk and I stepped out in 2014, the two of us, to help the church reach more people. As callings evolve, is that fair? That's you could disagree with the word evolve. That's fine. For me, that's how I see it. I hope you understand my heart in it. Callings evolve. I wouldn't change where I see how so many of the things that I was preparing for and thinking I was going to go in this one direction have now worked together for my good in this place and on this team and this conversation, in a way that I could never have drawn the line from there to here, but I'm so glad that it happened. I would love to hear your story. So in the channel, that would be one question, whether it's for now or for follow-up. What's your story? How did you go from there to here, wherever there was, wherever here is? And maybe some of you are like, well, this is what I've been preparing for since I was 7. The rest of us would love to be in awe of your story. So would you also write it and be like, yes, and then I read this book and went to this class and, and then interned at arts, whatever the path, all the way from you always knew, or maybe there was some curveballs like us that was like, I thought I was going to go on in education, and then I ended up in the local church, and then I thought, okay, I'll just be a church planner and church leader. And now here we are helping churches, helping nonprofits, and helping some for-profits, but in a for-profit organization. So that's where we're at. Where are we headed? I think if it's up to Kirk and I, we'd like to keep helping organizations reach people. So for as long as we have a say, and honestly, for us as church planting, that's why I wanted to be a church planter, is because I heard that more people went to a church plant that weren't going to be Christian. I wanted to reach people. That was the motivation when we launched. We had about a 10 to 15% visitor ratio. About 10% of the about 10% of our congregation on every single week was there, like checking out church for the first time, and the first time in a long time, especially when we were in the movie theater. I remember one Sunday it was snowing like 5 inches, and I'm one of those pastors, and you can hate this about me, my family does, that I just don't want to cancel, because we're here to reach people, right? Like, what if somebody shows up? Now today I'd probably be a little bit different. I'd be a little more lazy, I think. But one Sunday we decided to have it anyway, even though the storms were rolling in. And one guy literally shoveled snow the entire 2 hours we were there. And it snowed like 8 inches of snow. We had like 40 people. We were down from not 250 like normal. We had like 40. And there was 6 people that were there for the very first time, and they had never been to church. Like, they hadn't been to church in like half a decade. And so I was walking out, and it's pouring snow, and they're smiling. And I was like, today? Like, you woke up this morning and said, I'm going to go to church for the first time in 5 years this morning. And you looked outside and decided that was now, you're going to do it. And they're like, yeah. So I love that. I love reaching people, and I love partnering with every flavor of Christianity to reach as many people as we can, so that, man, maybe heaven, we'll have just something a little bit more to celebrate. I hope we keep reaching people. I love this phrase. I asked Kirk what he says when people ask him what he does. And I'm going to steal it. You guys can steal it too if you want. We help organizations communicate. And our vision is to partner with churches, nonprofits, and businesses to help them reach more people. But how do we do that? Well, we help organizations communicate. We do that through client services. We're a client-funded organization. Those of you that are newer to the team, this was a bootstrap project, still is. We are client-funded. We have resources to fuel this team because we have clients that pay us to have people that will help them reach more people, right? So it's this symbiotic, and that's it. That is not, we're learning those rhythms of business, but we're going to keep doing consulting. That was something that we launched last year that I see a lot of opportunity. We're called more and more into those conversations because of the communication triangle. The depth of our messaging, the heart of our branding pulls us into conversations. Who should we be? What should our mission be? What should our values be? What should our vision be? We're being asked not just, here, can you help design it? What should it look like? How do we? So yeah, we're going to keep leaning into consulting. We've got some new contracts rolling forward right now. So that we're going to do one-on-one executive coaching. Some of those are for-profit businesses with great leaders that are a part of the church. I didn't ask if everybody we're coaching is a follower of Jesus, because to me, it doesn't matter. I'll get to that in a second. Branding. We're going to keep doing branding and keep doing it well. Keep helping organizations understand that we do consulting and we do branding, and that's not just graphics, that's a message, and that's the communication triangle all filled out and expressed with great logo and colors and fonts and textures and photo treatments and all the things that communicate who you are to an audience to bring good and move them somewhere into that shared win. We're going to keep building websites and doing online presence, and I want to talk about innovation here in a minute, but these are the 4 things we do: consulting, branding, online presence, and ongoing creative support. Ongoing creative and marketing. That's a marketing conversation. How do we now take this creative? It's not just creative for creative sake. It's creative in a way that leads people somewhere good. So I hope in all those things you can see that communication triangle as a foundation piece. Kirk, is there anything else you wanted to say to that?
To the client services piece?
Yeah, or there's more that we want to do, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, well, there is more. I mean, one way that we stated kind of the big picture goal we're pressing towards as part of the reason we're doing what we're doing uh, we stated as rebrand the church. That is to say, a brand, one way to talk about brand is that's your reputation. That's your audience's understanding of who you are and what you do. And as I mentioned, that isn't a universally positive impression right now. As the church goes to reach people in the world today, whether we're talking about the Western culture or Muslims or anybody else, the church does have a reputation problem, a branding problem. And to help the church reach people, I think we can help rebrand the church. That is to say, we can help create intrigue to help as people who have already made a decision about church, about God, about Jesus, and have already closed their mind to that, to catch their attention and to cause them to reevaluate their assumptions. We can help the church create intrigue, allowing them a chance to reevaluate those assumptions and maybe take one step closer. So as a big picture, and so we're doing that. We're doing that through our client services, but we're, as you know, we've also launched in this past year the ArtSpeak Creative Community, so that we can resource creatives in lots of different contexts with tools to help them do that wherever they are, and to do that in a healthy way, to help them establish some healthy boundaries and healthy rhythms. That's something else that we're passionate about, that in order to do all of this that we're talking about, in order to reach people, we are people also, and we need to keep that in mind throughout the process. And so the community is to resource people to be effective, but also to be healthy. We also are developing products that will help the church reach people, help people be effective at reaching people.
In our vision statement about existing to partner with churches, nonprofits, and businesses to help them reach more people, we've articulated really 3 circles. If we could imagine those 3 circles as a Venn diagram: churches, nonprofits, and businesses. The conversations I'm being pulled into right now communicate to me very clearly that throughout the world right now, the Western world, that Venn diagram is being shoved together. And the cool part about that is ArtSpeak lives at the centerpiece of that. And right now, that means we're going to have a growing opportunity to speak to how does the church navigate church, nonprofit, and for-profit opportunities. And we're going to be partnering with those. So that means for me, deeper consulting, playbooks that we're writing, one-on-one coaching, organizational consultation. It's going to make a more of an opportunity for us to do clear branding for churches, nonprofits, and for-profits. Online, it's going to, as I think about the 4 things, this community, that's an innovative online presence. Others like Next Wave platform, there's going to be other opportunities to innovate online. And my mind immediately goes to Jonathan. Here's the mic. Where do we want to innovate? We can talk about that in just a second. Ongoing creative and marketing support. That is going to continue to develop and grow because we're looking at productized services. We're talking about video curriculums, a store with resources for those who want to reach people. All of those opportunities that we do are going to continue to also provide us more of an opportunity to be an outsourced creative agency, a marketing company, a communication consulting and graphic design and web build, all of that ongoing for clients. And we're seeing that already. So I have to pivot a little bit early today. Kirk's going to stay here. I would love to hear from you guys in the chat. I'd love to read it later. What part of this conversation is intriguing to you? What resonates with you about the future of ArtSpeak and the church? Because I want to hear, most of you, you don't have to raise hands, but most of you are younger, and even more in the intersection of culture than I am. What areas does the church need to lean into if it's going to reach people? Because we want to help them. What about Jesus intrigues your friends? That's a personal one. but what areas does the church need? I'll just try, like I'm reading over break about AI and the advancements there and for businesses. And I'm thinking, okay, how does the church use this? So anyway, those are some questions Kirk can reiterate. Talk amongst yourselves. Love you guys.
Well, with a few minutes left to go in this call, I'd love to circle back to those two last questions for a moment, where what does the church need to lean into if it's going to reach people in this century? And what about Jesus intrigues your friends? I'm really curious what this group would say to those questions. And you can put it in the chat, or you can go ahead and jump in here on the call. I'd love to open it up for those thoughts. So it says social justice. Absolutely.
I'd say one thing I was thinking about today, which I'll probably pitch this to be in ArtSpeak University, but I was thinking about the story of when Jesus was going to be crucified and Peter cut off the ear of guard and Jesus healed it, and how that's something I think the church does a lot today. Is for Jesus, we're going to cut off someone's ear. We're going, like, those with ears to hear, we're going to take away like their ability to hear with our focuses on things that aren't the kingdom or aren't the central message or aren't true to maybe our local expression of that. So I think what we need to do is, what the church needs to focus on is what Jesus did, which is heal the guard. I think it lines up with the communication triangle where Peter, Jesus is the shared win, the guard is those we're trying to reach, or the church is trying to reach, or whatever. So we need to focus, I think, on healing first. And that's where what we were just talking about today too, with messaging. If we don't know the message, if we aren't empathetic towards others, we can't help point towards healing and be part of that healing. We also, once there is healing, we need to do our best especially as creatives or church communicators, in removing obstacles to the message that we are crystal clear on because we've done the work on it. So there's a lot of tactical and practical things you can do out of that and focus on. But I think healing and removing obstacles and knowing the message and your unique expression of that, who you're best positioned to reach, all that, I think that's a lot of stuff the church should focus on this year and probably for a while.
Oh, I love that, Andrew.
The question one more time.
What does the church need to lean into to reach people this century? And what about Jesus intrigues your friends?
Two questions.
I've thought a lot lately about how Jesus just asks, who do they say that I am? And I think that's a really good way to start a conversation around Jesus with people. And I think churches need to, maybe this isn't what churches need to lean into, but there's a lot of, people probably are always going to be willing to say who they think Jesus is. And there's a really good opportunity there to start a lot of good conversations about Christ and the gospel.
I love that. That's Jason's story, by the way. If you didn't know it, Jason was a drug dealer driving down the highway, and a song came on making fun of Jesus Christ, and like, wait, who's Jesus and why are people singing about him? And that was the start of his journey.
I don't have anything for the first question, I don't think. But the second question is like, what are your friends? What are your friends, right? What do I think my friends like about Jesus? And it's like specifically in the context of friendship, I think that's me, right? Because they're my friends. And I think it's really easy to remove yourself from that equation. But I think on a very personal level, my friends who don't know Jesus, if they do, come to like him, it's what they see in him through me, through that friendship.
Yeah.
There's like a vital piece there. Like if I'm a sucky person, you know what I mean? Like it's gonna completely derail anything that they could, experience, about Christ through friendship. So
Yeah. By the way, that's how you reach a Muslim. You build
Yeah.
a relationship.
yes.
Something that
Well, let's-
I'm really thinking about is, I think this goes back to a little bit about what Andrew was saying too, is like, I read this book about just like patriarchy and how that affected the Bible and the way that the Bible seems to talk about women. And I don't have time to get into it, obviously, but I just think that like everything that you see about Jesus was so inviting, and like in the Bible times, like it was just like the men who wanted to be able to like listen, but Jesus always wanted like the kids to be around and the women to be around and the people that weren't important to be around, or even like men that were, slaves or workers or whatever. And I think that like there's so much nuance to what Jesus said, but also I think that he just wanted people to like listen. And I think that the church would do well to just let people listen. I think that whether subconsciously or consciously, the church shuts out a lot of people. I think, or not shuts out, but just like seems uninviting to a lot of people. I think that like everything that Jesus was, he just wanted people to like be around and listen and talk. And I think that's something that could be beneficial in the church.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much there, Hannah, so much there. We're over time, but this is a great conversation. I'd love to continue it in the channel, in Slack, and keep talking about these things, these questions. I'll post them there. And also love seeing everybody's story come in. So we'll keep that going too. But love all you guys. Appreciate you. Grateful for you. We'll see you in the channels.